A carefree game last night against Detroit. They won by 14 at Crypto.com. 25 points and 8 assists for LeBron. Anthony Davis had 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 block shots. The Lakers are at Utah tonight. Last game for the Lakers and Clippers before the All-Star break. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. A special moment for Shaquille O'Neal last night in Orlando. Shaq's number 32 jersey was retired by the Orlando Magic. He's the first Orlando player in the franchise's 35-year history to have his number retired. Shaq joins Wilt Chamberlain and Pete Maravich as the only NBA players to have their number retired by 3 teams. The Lakers retired Shaq's number 34. Miami retired his number 32. Orlando chose Shaq with the number 1 pick in the 1992 draft. He played 4 years with the Magic before signing with the Lakers as a free agent in 1996. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough. 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 If we care enough.
Make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water, make me sweat, make me harder, make me lose my breath, make me water.
Normally, I could keep my cool, but tonight I'm whining. I'ma be in a dangerous mood. Can you match my timing? Telling me that you're really about it, what you're hiding. Talk is cheap, so show me that you understand how I like it. Can you blow my mind? Set off my whole body.
I'm Tavis Smiley. Happy Valentine's Day to you. Delighted to have you hanging out with us today as we try to squeeze an 80-pound show into a 40-pound bag. More conversations today than I can count. And I'm just in hour 2. In this hour, 2 great conversations on the B side of this hour. While the special prosecutor seems to have issues with President Biden's mental acuity, Congressman Ro Khanna says the president is completely mentally sharp and up for a second term. That's on the backside of this hour. We commenced this hour, though, celebrating Valentine's Day with a deep dive into the evolution of love and human behavior with the preeminent scholar on the topic, Dr. Helen Fisher, Senior Research Fellow at the Kinsey Institute on the campus of Indiana University, where yours truly matriculated. Go Hoosiers. And she's also Chief Science Advisor to the internet dating site Match. I'm pleased to welcome and to have Dr. Helen Fisher on this program. Dr. Fisher, how are you today?
I'm just fine. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to you, too. As one Hoosier, graduate, IU graduate, I'm always delighted to talk to anybody associated with that institution. Yeah. And I've been there a number of times to visit. A fan of what you do at the Kinsey Institute. Let me start with that broad question. What do you do at the Kinsey Institute every day?
I don't. I basically write books, and I'm affiliated with Kinsey. And the director of Kinsey and I do a lot of academic speeches. I mean, well, basically, we collect data. I collect data on love. And I brought the director, his name's Justin Garcia, in with me, and the two of us do an annual study called Singles in America. We do it with Match. We do not poll the Match members. We create about 200 questions. We put them out to the public, and we watch for trends in love today. So I'm almost never at Kinsey, but physically, because I live and work in New York and actually basically write books.
Sure.
But I'm very much part of it, and get all their literature, know them all, and it's a great place.
Yep.
It's just a wonderful place.
How does one again a couple of broad questions, then we'll get into the love stuff. But how does one build a career? How does one get into the lane of love as a study?
Well, I started in graduate school for my PhD. I'm an identical twin, and I wanted to know. At the time, everybody believed that the brain was an empty slate, and the environment just made you who you are. And I thought to myself, wait a minute here. I mean, romantic love is a pretty strong feeling. I mean, I'm not sure you're taught this. I mean, people pine for love, they live for love, they kill for love, they die for love. I mean, the amount of myths and legends and poems and stories and symphonies and ballets and operas. I mean, we're marinated in this thing, and so. For my PhD dissertation, I started in thinking, well, first of all, why do we bother to pair up at all? I mean, 97% of mammals don't pair up to rear their young. People do. So that started it, and I began to, and then finally, I mean, I'm most well known. I don't know. I've written a lot of books on it, but the bottom line is, we're the first in the world to put people in brain scanners and study the actual brain circuitry. What happens in the brain when you look at a photograph of your sweetheart and you feel that intense, powerful feelings of romantic love. So to answer your question, I think it's been it's been my life project.
Yeah.
What is love?
There's so many things I want to talk to you about in the time I have with you. Speaking of what our brain does when it comes to love, I read it just before I got on the air. A beautiful piece in today's New York Times, headline, "What New Love Does to Your Brain." What new love does to your brain. Our guest, Dr. Fisher, is quoted in this beautiful piece today in the New York Times. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But since you went there, at least you went back to where your study first started. You got in this love lane. So let me ask you, why do we pair up? As human beings, why do we pair up?
Yeah, because from millions of years ago, I mean, there's all kinds of animals that don't need a partner to help them rear their young. I mean, let's take a mouse. A mouse is very thick milk. She can feed her babies, go out and feed herself, and that's fine. But something like a fox this is a wonderful question, Tavis, because most people don't ask it. I mean, a fox has very thin milk, so the female, she's got to stay with the babies long term until they get out of the nest, which is months, and so she needs a partner to help feed her. And so 90% of birds form a partnership because somebody's got to sit on those eggs, and that individual's going to starve to death unless they get a partner to help them. So basically about 4 million years ago, the trees were disappearing. Our ancestors came down out of the ground. Women began to hold their babies in their arms instead of on their backs. They can't walk on all four limbs, have to walk on two, carry the baby, began to need a partner to rear their young. And we evolved millions of years ago these basic brain systems for romantic love, which drives you just to focus on one person, and also a second brain region for attachment, the brain circuitry that enables us to stick with the person after we've fallen in love to raise your babies together. So they're very powerful brain systems, romantic love and attachment. They lie way at the base of the brain, as a matter of fact. I mean, as a matter of fact, the basic brain region that gives you the feelings of intense romantic love lies right next to the factory that orchestrates thirst and hunger. Thirst and hunger keep you alive today. Yeah. Romantic love drives you to form a partnership and send your DNA into tomorrow. So in one word, we love. It's a survival instinct. It evolved millions of years ago, and of course we've embellished them with all of our songs and dances and everything. We build on that.
You got me thinking now. When we come forward, I know exactly where I want to go because I wish I had time to ask you right now, but I'll hold it. We've got a lot to talk about, as we say around here. But I'm fascinated now, Dr. Fisher, by the love that gets us into these relationships, that thing that makes us want to pair up. And the distinct difference between that and that thing that keeps us in or doesn't keep us in. So the thing that gets us in is strong enough to get us there, but if it were equally as strong, it would keep us there. But the divorce rate in this country is off the charts. So what's the disconnect? What's that disconnect about? We'll probe that and a great deal more with the leading scholar on love, Dr. Helen Fisher, who joins us right now on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
LADWP is proud to partner with KBLA to share with you how to start the new year without bill worries. We're here to help if you're behind on your bill or need help staying current. Sign up anytime online for Level Pay to set predictable monthly payments throughout the year, including for past due amounts. You can also check out the special extended pay arrangements of up to 48 months to help pay down your bill. If you're a senior or income qualified, you may be eligible for Easy Save to receive discounts and also qualify for free and discounted energy and water saving devices. You can get up to $15,000 for past due water and or sewer bills and up to $3,000 for electric bills. But you gotta act fast. Funding is limited. You can reduce your past due bills and kick off the year right, because here at LADWP, we're here to help. Visit ladwp.com/cares today and find out more.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin, ultra soft on the potty. Less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft. It's our party vibe. It's cushion and clean, so our cheeks feel flat. So everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
All right, Dr. Helen Fisher, tell me more about what gets us there versus what keeps us or doesn't keep us there.
Yeah. Well, what starts it all is that little brain system for romantic love. I mean, this is a little factory near the very base of the brain, and it makes dopamine and gives you that intense feeling of craving, obsession, energy. You suddenly feel this is the most special person on earth. I mean, their car is different from every other car in the parking lot. You can walk and talk all night. Euphoria when things are going well. Emotional dependence. You check on your text messages to see if they've written real sexual desire, possessiveness, jealousy. And the biggest aspect of intense romantic love, what gets you is this intrusive thinking. You obsessively think about this person day and night. And so that's what starts it. And it's a basic brain system. I mean, I always think it's a little bit like a sleeping cat. It can be triggered instantly. You walk into a room, you see somebody who's really cute, charming, they smile at you. They look like they could fit into what I call your love map, what you're looking for in a partner. You're ready to fall in love, and boom, the brain system can get self-triggered. Excuse me. But that's what starts it. And then, of course, with time, if things are well, I mean, during the course of courtship, there's breaking points and there's escalation points. And you get enough breaking points, you walk out. And the escalation points can continue to build. And also you begin to grow feelings of attachment, this second brain system, this sense of cosmic union to a particular individual. What you really want to do in a long-term partnership is keep all three of the basic brain systems for mating and reproduction alive. Keep the sex drive alive. That can actually trigger feelings of romantic love and attachment. You want to do novel things together, drive up the dopamine system so you can sustain feelings of romantic love. And you want to stay in touch, kissing and hugging, holding hands, walking arm in arm, learning to sleep next to somebody for a period of time, sitting next to them, watching television and holding hands. All of that can sustain feelings of attachment. So you want to keep all three of these basic brain systems alive. And what's interesting is that you were talking about divorce. And why is it that some people, it doesn't work? Well, basically, you probably picked the wrong person for a long partnership. And for millions of years, our ancestors did have several long-term partnerships, and probably for a Darwinian reason. Because if you have babies by more than one person, that was adaptive for millions of years. But the bottom line is, actually, Tavis, I am actually quite hopeful about the future. I call it slow love. And what we're seeing today is people marrying much later. In my day, they were married at around age 20. These days, they're married around almost age 30. That's 10 years of figuring out who you are, trying people out, getting rid of what you don't want. And by the time you walk down the aisle, around age 30 on average, you know who you got, you think you can keep who you've got, and you think this can work. And all of my data, not only from Match, but I've looked at divorce in 80 cultures around the world and in hunter-gatherers. The longer you court and the later you marry, the more likely you are to remain together. And that's exactly what's happening around the world today. I'm actually quite optimistic about the future. I think the young today, boy, they are picky, man. The younger, they're creating all these new terms. I mean, benching and ghosting and you name it, man, they got it.
Yeah.
But they're defining they're dicing and chopping and understanding what love is and figuring out who they are and marrying later. I think they may even usher in a few decades of relative family stability.
From your mouth to God's ears. Let's just put it that way. Let me ask about these love maps. These love maps. Are we? How do I want to phrase this? Are we literally the architects of our love maps, or is that a bit more to do with biology, DNA, or do we actually create these love maps?
Both.
Okay.
Absolutely both.
Okay.
I mean, we do know that we tend to fall in love with somebody from the same socioeconomic and ethnic background, same degree of intelligence, good looks, education, same religious and social values, same reproductive and economic goals. Your childhood always plays a role. I'll say it again. Your childhood always plays a role. But, you can walk into a room and everybody's from your background and same level of education and good looks, and you don't fall in love with them, all of them. So that's why I've spent the last 20 years trying to figure out the biological part. A good 40 to 60% of the differences between people is genetic. I mean, some people are better at singing on tune. Some people are more cautious. Some people are better hitting the tennis ball. Some people are more adventurous. We know there's biology to behavior. So what I wanted to find out is, why are we naturally drawn to one person rather than another? And I wrote a book on it several years ago called Why Him, Why Her. Sorry, I went to a party last night and everybody was screaming, so I'm losing my voice here. But anyway, what I ended up finding is people who are very expressive of the traits in the dopamine system in the brain, I call them explorers, are drawn to people like themselves. If they are If you're an explorer, you're risk-taking, novelty-seeking, curious, creative, spontaneous, energetic. They're drawn to people like themselves. People who are very expressive of the serotonin system, I call them builders. Not a great term, but over 15 million people have taken my questionnaire, so I'm stuck with the terms now. But anyway, they're traditional, conventional, follow the rules, respect authority. They are drawn also to people like themselves. Mike Pence is a good example. Mitt Romney, they're traditional people drawn to traditional people.
No, and yet, as I listen to you, that makes sense, Dr. Fisher. And yet, I am mindful of this term, as are you, that we've heard time and time again, that it is opposites that attract.
Right. And that's the other two basic brain systems. Testosterone goes for estrogen, and estrogen goes for testosterone. So if you're very high testosterone, you tend to be analytical, logical, direct, decisive, tough-minded, skeptical, good at things like math, engineering, computers, etc. You're drawn to your opposite. I call those people directors. You're drawn to the high estrogen, which I call negotiators, people who see the big picture, see long-term, quite imaginative, very intuitive, good at reading posture, gesture, tone of voice, empathetic, and they're drawn to the opposite. But what's really important here is that we express all four of these brain systems.
Mm-hmm.
No other questionnaire puts you in this bucket or that bucket. It's not the way the brain works. So the bottom line is, for example, my husband and me, we're both very high dopamine. Been all over the world. We do things at the spur of the moment. We write for a living. That requires creativity, etc. We're both high dopamine. Works fine. He's very high testosterone, and I'm very high estrogen. That's where the opposites in us attract. But he is higher on serotonin than I am. He's more likely to follow the rules. And what's interesting is we were walking along. We live in New York, and I was going to cut through this place to these sort of field to get to the subway. And on this field was a little sign that said, "Don't walk on the grass." Mm-hmm. So I started across the field to get to the subway, and my husband said, "You can't walk on the grass." And I said, "There hasn't been any grass here in 50 years." And he says, "You can't walk on the grass." So the bottom line is, we all, take the questionnaire. I mean, the bottom line is, what's nice about this is we're so marinated in psychology. I'm very big on believing in psychology. There's all kinds of good psychological things to learn, to do, to make a long-term partnership. But there's parts of us who are just who we are. And the more you can understand who somebody really is, you can overlook. Yeah. It's called positive illusions. You can overlook
it. Yeah.
Yep.
I assume in part we use this phrase because it rhymes, and when things rhyme, it makes it easier. But why do we always say to you and your husband, happy wife, happy life, but never the equivalent of happy husband, happy something?
I think it's a real mistake. I think this whole thing about toxic masculinity is so sad. I mean, there's so many good men in the world. Men fall in love faster than women do. They fall in love more often than women do. They are 2.5 times more likely to kill themselves. Look at what things men do for women. I hope the pendulum will swing back to understand how happy husband, happy life works just as well as happy wife, happy life.
Yep. I mentioned the New York Times piece earlier. I was fascinated by this piece. The headline is "What New Love Does to Your Brain. Roses are red, violets are blue. Romance can really mess with you." That's the subtitle. But tell me, because you're quoted in this piece, in this article, what does new love do to our brains?
It gives you obsession.
Yeah.
It starts to trigger the little factory called the ventral tegmental area, lying near the base of the brain, and gives you that focus, the motivation, the energy, the butterflies in the stomach, the emotional dependence, the separation anxiety, the craving for sex, and basically the obsessive thinking about somebody. And in terms of messes with your brain, Tavis, nobody gets out of love alive. We all make mistakes. But you know what? Cupid keeps working. Cupid keeps at it. We're built to love. We're built to fall in love all our lives. You just got to give Cupid a chance.
Yeah. I'm asking this in part because I experienced this the other day, and most of us have. You live long enough, you'll experience it. But we see these stories from time to time, and again, if you live long enough, you'll see it in your own life, where there's a couple that's been together forever.
Yeah.
and one of them dies, and everybody panics because they know the other one's going to die like shortly thereafter. And this stuff seems real. Is it real?
Nobody's ever put the people in the brain scanner, so I can't say anything except for sure. These are basic brain systems, and what has this person lost? They've lost what they regard as everything in life. We only see them at parties, but all the snuggling, all their jokes, all their memories, everything in life that they've put together, but also all their daily habits, routines, rituals of Christmas or whatever, and so sure. You can even die from rejection in love. You can get a heart attack or a stroke. We are playing this. Romantic love and feelings of deep attachment are among the most powerful brain systems the human animal has ever evolved. I mean, you lose your job, you don't jump out the window. You don't stay in bed for a month crying. I mean, love is so horrible when it's not working, and really such a thrill. Life's greatest thrill. I'm
glad you went there because I wanted to go there, and I've got about 3 minutes left with you, and I want to go in this direction if I can. Because it's Valentine's Day, and everybody, at least for this day, everybody's in love today. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But today, everybody's in love. But you put your finger on something I want to get to right quick, and that is what your advice is for those who are in pain today, today and other days, because they have been rejected in love and having a hard time navigating that process. Yeah.
First of all, it will end. There's various stages to rejection in love. First, there's shock and some hope. Then you try to win the person back, protest, trying to win them back. Then resignation and despair. And then finally the day comes and you feel indifference. And you have what I call post-traumatic growth. But the bottom line is you can speed it up. For God's sakes, go out with friends. Get hugs and kisses from other people. That'll drive up the oxytocin system. Don't lie in bed and cry. Get moving. There's somebody camping in your head. You got to get them out. And so I would say create a story of what happened here. When you got the story done, then you can bury it and move on. But I personally would get on some dating sites and at least meet some new people. Sometimes this despair is a wake-up call. Okay, you've made mistakes. You're learning from it. Now you're going to get going again, and it's possible. We all get rejected in love. As I said, nobody gets out alive. We recover. You will recover. If you're listening to this program, you will recover. Just get moving. Get around people. Get around people who are laughing. That drives up dopamine. Get some exercise. That drives up dopamine. Get hugs and kisses. That drives up oxytocin. Gives you feelings of attachment and optimism. You can get out of this alive. Do it.
Finally, is there value in having days like Valentine's Day? There are people who have different mindsets about this. They're all into it. They love it. They're doing the flowers and the candy and all that, the dinners and all the stuff. There are others who are like, man, I don't need a day to tell me that I have to tell you that I love you. It's just crass commercialism. So how do you view Valentine's Day?
Well, for me, it's work.
I didn't see that coming. I should have saw that coming. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and eventually, I'll go buy myself a piece of a beautiful cookie.
So your let me guess. Your favorite day of the year is the day after Valentine's Day.
You got it, kid. No, to be serious about it, I think for a lot of people, it is a day to say what you haven't said a lot of other days. I think it is a day to try and do something special. And if you don't have somebody special, it's a wake-up call day. And you got to say, okay, I don't have anybody special. I should go out with friends and do other things, but I better get on those dating sites or begin to figure out, how I get this solved. Because, as I think I may have said, people in long-term happy relationships live 5 to 10 years longer. It's worth it.
I hear you. She is Senior Research Fellow at the Kinsey Institute and Chief Science Advisor to the Internet dating site Match, and she's awfully good at what she does. She is Dr. Helen Fisher. Dr. Fisher, happy Valentine's Day.
And same to you, kid.
Thank you. More Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris are celebrating Black History Month in a series of ads. According to the re-election campaign, the radio, print, and digital ads will tout the promises Biden kept to Black Americans over his first term. The ads will run in several cities, including Atlanta, Georgia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Detroit, Michigan. Heading into Super Bowl 58, Buffalo Wild Wings promised that if the game went into overtime, everyone gets free wings. The game did in fact go into overtime. The Chiefs emerged victorious with a final score 25-22. That means come Monday, February 26th from 2 until 5 p.m. in local time zones, all dine-in and in-person takeout orders will be gifted one free order of wings per customer. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Why are people saying "Hugh yeah" to Jackson Hewitt? When you switch to Jackson Hewitt, they will beat what you paid last year on tax prep, even if you filed online. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers had a carefree game last night against Detroit. They won by 14 at Crypto.com. 25 points and 8 assists for LeBron. Anthony Davis had 20 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 block shots. The Lakers are at Utah tonight. Last game for the Lakers and Clippers before the All-Star break. The Clippers are at Golden State tonight. A special moment for Shaquille O'Neal last night in Orlando. Shaq's number 32 jersey was retired by the Orlando Magic. He's the first Orlando player in the franchise's 35-year history to have his number retired. Shaq joins Wilt Chamberlain and Pete Maravich as the only NBA players to have their number retired by 3 teams. The Lakers retired Shaq's number 34. Miami retired his number 32. Orlando chose Shaq with the number 1 pick in the 1992 draft. He played 4 years with the Magic before signing with the Lakers as a free agent in 1996. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though?
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Why are people saying "Hugh yeah" to Jackson Hewitt? When you switch to Jackson Hewitt, they will beat what you paid last year on tax prep, even if you filed online. Proof of prior year payment required when filing. New clients only at participating locations through April 7th. Terms at jacksonhewitt.com.
KBLA Talk 1580 is the exclusive media sponsor of this light of ours, activist photographers of the Civil Rights Movement. a dynamic new exhibition on view now at the Skirball Cultural Center in Los Angeles. This light of ours showcases more than 150 photos taken by movement insiders from diverse backgrounds that reveal the vital work undertaken by a broad coalition of organizers and everyday people whose collective action changed America. This light of ours is one of 3 temporary exhibitions currently on view at the Skirball, which together explore issues related to civil rights, immigration, and pluralism. Tickets and more information for all 3 exhibitions are available at skirball.org. That's skirball.org. SKIRBALL.org.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Smart talk for curious people just like you. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
And I'm glad about it. We are moving through these conversations today, squeezing this 80-pound show into a 40-pound bag, and I am delighted to have right now Congressman Ro Khanna with the special prosecutor having issues with the president's mental acuity. You recall that report the other day that basically called the president old and feeble with a bad memory. Ro Khanna doesn't see it that way. He says the president is completely mentally sharp and up for a second term. I am honored to have Congressman Ro Khanna on this program. Congressman, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Travis. Thank you for having me on. It's a real honor.
It's good to have you on the program. Thanks for your time. So when you say the president is completely mentally sharp, my first question is, completely?
Travis, I just spoke with him 2 weeks ago. I was down in South Carolina. We were discussing the Middle East. Now, I have had differences for a ceasefire and the release of full hostages, but the president was very engaged. He said he's pushing back on Netanyahu. And this was a conversation in a rope line. He paused and was talking for a few minutes, and I saw him again 2 weeks later at the House Democratic Retreat. I think if you talk to people who have actually sat down and had substantive conversations with the president, they'll tell you he is on top of the details, and this is just a Republican attack on him.
Yep. I want to talk in a moment about your view, his point to you that he's pushing back on Netanyahu. Just had a conversation earlier in today's program about progressives who are pressing the president right now, pressing him pretty hard on this decision by Bibi Netanyahu to push into Gaza even further. Where these Palestinian civilians are just kind of everywhere, Rafah, and President Biden told him not to do it. He did it anyway. So I'll come back in a moment to this notion that the president told you that he's pushing back on Netanyahu. I want to see exactly what he told you and what you make of that. But to your point earlier about this being a Republican attack, there are those, and I would be one of those. Let me just be clear about that. I am one of those who thinks that this one line, this one sentence in this report was, in fact, an attack on the president. It was unnecessary. It had nothing to do with the job he was given to decide whether or not the president ought to be prosecuted. That line was there for a particular reason. I didn't like it. I thought it was hitting below the belt. That's my read. What's yours?
Tavis, I completely agree with you. I mean, look, you don't talk about someone's dead son.
Mm-hmm.
And we know people who've gone through grief. People deal with it differently. Some people remember the exact day and time. Other people block it out and don't want anything to do with it. But that has nothing to do with what he was investigating, which is the president taking these documents and he found that the president didn't do anything illegal. That was the bottom line, that the president had taken documents. They inadvertently had a couple of classified documents. As soon as he discovered that, unlike Donald Trump, he cooperated and gave them back. And that the headline should have been Special Counsel exonerates President Biden. Instead, the headline became about his age, and the special counsel knew what he was doing. It was a political shot.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that that did in fact become the headline? Is that going to is this issue going to be damaging to the president? And I want to ask him in a moment about what you made of his decision to so hastily call that news conference, at which he made another mistake. But my first question is, what do you make of the fact that that became the headline?
I'm not going to lie, it's not good. I mean, we live in a superficial sort of media-oriented culture where the way someone talks and the way someone looks is very important to being elected. It's no longer a time where you could be FDR and be on crutches, and that's not going to matter. And so we have to deal with this head on. And the way to deal with it is, I think, the side of the president that we see privately, more people in the country need to see that. That means the staff should allow him to go out there. I thought it was great what he did in North Carolina, where he went to that family's home and he sat down with that young man who had his student loans forgiven. And he's got to do more stuff like that. Get him out and let people see the real Joe Biden.
As you recognize, though, you've campaigned quite nicely yourself over the years. The more you get out, the more opportunities there are to be seen on camera making mistakes. So how should the White House manage his schedule as he campaigns for the White House for re-election between now and November?
But that was you have to be. People forgive mistakes. I made a mistake. I misspoke. I said Travis instead of Tavis. Doesn't mean that I never come on your show again. I come on your show. You own it. People are human. Now, if I was Joe Biden, they'd say, "Oh, he's going senile. He doesn't know who Tavis is." Of course, I know who you are, but you just mispronounced something because something's on your mind. So, that's the nature of talking. But I think people are looking for authenticity. People are looking for folks who are willing to go out, and if they make a mistake, they admit it. But where's your heart? And Joe Biden's heart, I'll tell you, his heart is for the American people and for working folks, and it's not for Donald Trump's heart is for these massive tax cuts. But the one thing that, if there's one message that being down in South Carolina recently that I think the Democratic Party needs to talk more about that we're not talking about, and that's wealth generation and intergenerational wealth generation. And how are we going to have a vision for building new wealth for young people so they can own a home, so they can start a business? I represent Silicon Valley. It's $10 trillion of market value. A lot of people want new opportunities for wealth. Trump has sold a bunch of false propaganda about that, but our party needs to have a real plan for that.
No, first of all, I love guests who think fast on their feet. Ro Connor's one of the best. I love the example of Travis versus Tavis, and we all make that slip up. Trust me, I've been called so many things. I'm used to it. Just don't call me late for dinner, as I say. But I love your point that because I slip up and say Travis when I know your name is Tavis does not mean I'm senile. But if Joe Biden had done that, they say he's senile. He doesn't know who Tavis actually is. It's a powerful point, and I take it. Let me ask you whether or not you think the White House was wise. I've been on the air a couple of days now saying I'm not so sure I like the idea because I felt they were being defensive. I mean, the guy said what he said, and the way you disprove that is to just do what you do. But they jumped so quickly to call this press conference, and then the president mistook the president of Egypt for the president of Mexico. That became another headline. You think they moved too quickly to be being defensive on that issue?
Tavis, I do. Look, the president was at 3:30. The president was with us in Virginia speaking to House Democrats.
Right.
And then he has to get back to Washington. He comes. It's 7:30 at night. Take the day to just sit on it and then do something in the morning when you're fresh. And don't be defensive. I mean, talk about your record. And one of the things I was totally opposed to President Reagan, but he made his age a sense of humor.
That's
and
right.
I was talking to Steny Hoyer. He said, both of the candidates are a little too young for me because Steny's in his 80s. But I think he could diffuse it with his humor, with substance. We don't need to see anger from the White House because that just shows defensiveness.
Yeah. To your point, Ronald Reagan had a great line. I remember it like it was yesterday. He basically said, if you don't hold my age against me, I won't hold your youth and inexperience against you. It was a great line, and it worked. It worked remarkably well. Of course, Joe Biden can't use that line. He's running against another guy who is not so youthful and frankly had no experience before he became president. And when he was president, the experience that he did have didn't aid or abet us in any meaningful way. I digress on that. We'll continue our conversation with Congressman Ro Khanna when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Your floors can go from clean to dirty fast. From juice spills, whoops, to muddy paw prints, to little sticky finger marks. Good thing your Swiffer Wet Jet works fast too. Swiffer Wet Jet easily cleans everyday messes as quick as they happen. The next mess is right around the corner. So grab your Swiffer Wet Jet and just spray, push, all clean.
Let's get back to more of Tavis Smiley right now.
More of Congressman Ro Khanna right now on Tavis Smiley. I'm delighted to have him on this program between now and the top of the hour, so a few more minutes to cover a few more things. You mentioned earlier, Congressman Khanna, your conversation with the president the other day, and he said to you that he's pushing back on Netanyahu. There are many who don't exactly see what that pushback looks like. Let me take you back to a conversation I had earlier on today's program where we were discussing this and how progressives, of which you, I think, are one, you are a progressive, but progressives are pushing harder and harder on this president, given that he and everybody else told Bibi Netanyahu not to go into Rafah. He ignored us. He went in there anyway. And the question I posed to a guest earlier that I now want to pose to you, really a two-part question. One, in what ways do you see the president actually pushing back on Netanyahu? That's what he told you he was doing, number one. What's the evidence of that, number one? And number two, how do you explain that we keep telling Bibi, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this? He keeps doing this, and that, and yet we keep sending him weapons. I pass the mic to you, sir.
Well, Tavis, I have no doubt the president did tell Bibi that he needs to do more to protect civilian lives, that he shouldn't go into Rafah. But I agree with you that the rhetoric isn't enough. I mean, let's be very clear, right? Bibi and Ben-Gvir, extreme right-wing government, they're further to the right than Donald Trump. I mean, Ben-Gvir is talking about the mass expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza and the West Bank. He's sitting there as the national security minister of Israel, and how dare he insult our president? He has criticized Joe Biden. He has insulted Joe Biden. How dare he do that when we have provided so much aid over years to Israel? So I believe that the president needs to call up Bibi and tell him time's up, end the war. And he did that in 2021, where Netanyahu within hours stopped. Reagan called Menachem Begin when Lebanon was going on, and Begin within hours stopped. And that's why there are about 60 of us who are saying we need a permanent ceasefire and a release of the hostages. I believe the president has the power to do that, and we're going to continue to push.
You serve on the House Armed Services Committee. Why do you think the president hasn't done that? And if Rafah is a red line that Bibi crossed anyway, then what's it going to take for the president to do that? Why has he not done it? And what's it going to take for him to do it?
I think it's going to take more members of Congress, more progressives speaking up. We're up to about 65 now, and I think if we get to 100, and the activists, I think at some point he will. I know the president's frustrated with what Netanyahu's done. Look, everyone condemned the October 7th terrorist attacks on Israel. There was huge sympathy, and had Israel gone about doing this and getting the Hamas perpetrators who committed those attacks, they would have the world on their side. But Netanyahu and his extreme far-right wing have bombed innocent children and innocent women. Over almost 30,000 people have died. The entire world has condemned that in the Security Council, and I think the time has come for a ceasefire. And the truth of it, Travis, is that a lot of the black and brown members of Congress right now are the ones who are saying it, but the coalition is growing.
Yep. When we come forward in my remaining moments, I have about 3 or 4 minutes left. When we come forward, I want to ask Congressman Ro Khanna two things. One, that I mentioned a moment ago, but I want to ask him just a point-blank and direct question. Again, he serves on the House Armed Services Committee. Why do we keep telling Bibi not to do this, that, and the other, Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel? We say don't do this, he keeps doing it, and yet we keep sending him arms. We keep sending him weapons. That doesn't make any sense. You tell somebody not to do something, but you keep sending them all the weaponry they need to do it. There's a disconnect there. Can you explain that, Congressman? I want to ask you that when we come forward. And I also want to ask a question about Silicon Valley. You mentioned earlier you represent Silicon Valley, and I know you've been pretty aggressive in calling for what you see as a new economic patriotism to create jobs in these industries of the future, which you think can have the effect of sort of unifying our country. I want to talk about your agenda. Before we wrap this conversation, I'm Tavis Smiley. He is Congressman Ro Khanna, and we're glad to have you tuned into this dialogue.
All the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like freedom.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Did you know COVID-19 vaccines have been updated this season? They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against recent variants, and most people in the U.S. should continue to pay nothing out of pocket for COVID-19 vaccines. Uninsured or underinsured adults can receive them at no cost at participating Bridge program locations, and eligible children can receive them through the Vaccines for Children program at participating providers. For children, COVID-19 vaccines are at no cost, but there may be fees such as for the visit or administration. Book a vaccine option at schedulecovidvax.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Watch out!
Galaxy, safe once again.
In the pretend universe, kids play with pretend guns. In the real world, it's up to us to make sure they don't get their hands on a real gun. If you have a gun in the house, keep it locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Try Venus for pubic hair and skin, the razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Discover the full regimen of products at GilletteVenus.com.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Charles Barkley in a pickup game.
We'll take Barkley.
Ha! First pick! Sorry, kids! Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision?
Okay, here's the plan. Pass me the ball every time.
This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Congressman Ro Khanna coming your way right about now. I got about 3 minutes left in this conversation. Congressman Khanna, it is one thing to tell BB to not do this, that, or the other, but while you're telling him what not to do, you're still sending him weapons of destruction. Can you square those two things for me?
I cannot. We should not be doing it. I gave a speech on the House floor saying why I voted no on the $17 billion in Israel aid. It went viral on TikTok, and I don't think we should be just shipping these arms when Netanyahu is blatantly ignoring the president.
Mm-hmm. So finally here, you mentioned earlier in one of your previous conversations in the last few days with President Biden, this notion that you have, which I think is a good one, that we need to find a way to create a new economic model, if you will, for creating jobs in these industries of the future. You represent Silicon Valley. That's part of your district in the House. What say you about the way we actually accomplish that, though?
Well, I've got a district that's got $10 trillion of market value. Apple, Google, NVIDIA, Tesla. We've got to create those opportunities in communities that are locked out of modern wealth generation. So I've created partnerships, for example, with Google and Benedict College, which is at HBCU, Zoom and Claflin, that provide $5,000 scholarships for young folks, and then they get a $65,000 job. We've got to be funding far more of the startups of people in communities that don't have access to capital, and we've got to create new industry, new steel, clean steel, new semiconductors, new battery plants in places across America. The difference we have is that a lot of the wealth generation opportunities are concentrated in a few places, and we haven't done enough to spread those opportunities.
Yep. Silicon Valley does not look like the country is the way the country does. Put another way, as you well know, we are headed inexorably toward that day, not too far into the future, where for the first time ever, this country will be a majority minority. That is to say, people of color will outnumber our white fellow citizens. But you know exactly what Silicon Valley looks like. So what is the disconnect that Silicon Valley has to diversity, inclusion, and to your point, creating jobs for people of color in these industries that do represent the future? What's that disconnect about as you see it?
Well, I think there hasn't been intentionality. I mean, since Reverend Jesse Jackson, they've been talking about the lack of diversity in Silicon Valley. But we will never overcome the racial wealth gap in this country if we don't overcome the racial wealth generation gap. The good news is now some of the Indian Americans are rising up, and the Indian American community owes their existence in America to the civil rights movement that led to the Immigration Reform Act, why my parents could come here. And I've gotten some traction with some of the Indian American leaders saying, look, we've got to partner with the HBCUs. We've got to invest in black and brown small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs. And if we do that, if we become actually the party that leads the wealth generation, new technology, new entrepreneurship opportunities across this country and for communities shut out, we would easily defeat Donald Trump. I think we don't have a clear economic agenda for young people in communities of color of how they're going to own a house, how they're going to build wealth, and they have the same aspirations as anyone to have the American dream, and we need to do better to give them the pathway for that.
I couldn't agree more, and we need to figure it out sooner than later. He is Congressman Ro Khanna, who I've been honored to have on this program. Congressman, all the best to you. Thanks for your time, sir.
Thank you. Real honor, Tavis. Thanks for having me. Hope to be back.
I look forward to it. Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris